Hi, I'm Faisal Hoque. I'm about to have a productive conversation with Mike Verdi.
Faisal, thanks so much for taking the time to join me today on a productive conversation to talk about. I'm holding this on my iPad, but it's whoa, there we go. Transcend. It is unlocking humanity in the age of AI. It's a hot button topic, not just now, but I think it's going to be a hot button topic for a while. And
Yep.
why? What I wanted to chat with you right at the gate was, I know you'll normally get questions like, "Why did you decide to write this book?" et cetera, et cetera. But for me, it's more like, um, how how do you feel knowing that you're probably gonna be talking about this topic for a very, very, very long time, considering the tenor around humanity and AI and how they I mean, the genie's out of the bottle, right? So, I mean, this is gonna be something you're gonna be, kind of obviously dealing with or conversing about for quite some time. So how are you, prepared for that? Because, I mean, you've got the book, but people are gonna be diving into this, and it's changing so rapidly, right?
Yeah, look, I've been in tech business for my entire career, which is now 30 plus years. And I've started talking about, I've been working with AI probably more than 10, 15 years. And the modern AI that we know and we talk about today, it's at the forefront because of generative AI.
Mhm.
But behind the scene, there has been all sorts of AI, automation, predictive modeling, you name it. And I kind of started talking about AI when I wrote Lift, which was a few years ago. Then I s- talked a little more in my previous book called Reinvent. And
Mhm.
then I said, I really need to write a full book that kind of talks about the kind of different discipline that's actually makes up AI. It's not just the technology. So the humanity, philosophy, business, and technology is makes up. It's what makes up the ecosystem. Yeah. So you're right. We're not going to stop talking about it. We have been talking about it, and we'll be talking about it for quite a while.
Well, and I mean, you bring up a good point. Like generative AI is the one that really kind of really rose it to the forefront because you're right. I mean, people have said to me before, "Oh, I don't use AI." I'm like, "Do you use Google Maps?" They're like, "Well, yeah." I'm like, well, guess what? Like, there are elements of that, and what what the retort I get for that, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because it does come into thinking. Like right out of the book, right out of the gate with the book, they're like, thinking matters, and we live in a world that's not necessarily predisposed to giving us time and space to think about these things and says like, look at this, here's this. And so when I, answer that question was, well, you use Google Maps, all right? Oh, yeah, yeah, but that's not the same thing. I'm like, well, do you always follow Google Maps? They're like, well, no, sometimes. I'm like, yeah, like if you know where you're going and roughly, and it tells you to go one way, you're like, I know that that's a bad intersection typically, so I'm going to go this way instead. And I get back. I mean, that's you overriding AI. That's you using that, and then it gets you back. What do they say? Recalibrating or reposition or positioning or what have you. But this thinking piece is really important because I think um, that this fear around generative AI and that AI is just so in your face now more than it ever has been. How important is it for us to like take a step back, take a breath, and really think about this and the relationship between, how we should think about humans, which you start the book off with, and how we should think about AI?
And look, I mean, we always have options to say no, right? I mean, that is what quintessentially means to be human. It's the ability to choose to do things or not to do things, follow something or not follow something. Humanity is all about freedom and ability to make decisions. We don't always do that, but that's what we are capable of doing, right? So you talk
Hmm.
about Google Map, you can see all kind of other example. Think about what happens when you turn on your Netflix and it's suggesting you should be watching this next, and you either to choose it or don't. Or let's say you bought a pair of sneakers 6 months ago, it's time to buy a new one, or look at this cool thing that you browsed and and here's a cool thing that you can buy next. So and then you could get in a deeper topic like, we're seeing this massive geopolitical shift, and people are constantly being manipulated with misinformation, information echo chambers, and other kind of things, and huge amount of kids are being affected because of that kind of information flow and whatnot. So these are all the manipulated bad things can happen. Has been happening for quite a while with algorithm, right? And
Right.
now what's happening is this algorithm is reaching more and more a cognitive level where it can start establishing a relationship with you, right? So this is where it gets to the next level. And so it's not so much just about generative AI. Generative AI is basically the interface that makes a natural language interface with computing power. But the computing power has been reaching by every day, every week, is reaching the next level of cognitive sense.
Hmm.
And some people, people are fearful that it will reach the natural artificial intelligence, which is called AGI, not too much in distant future. So once that happens, you can imagine you have AI assistant and you're telling the assistant to do something, which is AI, and then the assistant says, "But how about this? This is a better way, right?" I said, "Yeah, I
Right.
mean, it sounds about right, right?" So the convenience, and human beings are very convenient-driven species. We like to do things easy way. We
Hmm.
lack discipline. And most of us lack discipline, right? So what the fear is that this is where the fear comes in, and I'll talk about the opportunity as well. The
Yeah.
fear comes in from like slowly outsourcing ourselves thinking process, doing process, communicating, et cetera, right?
Right.
The opportunity, however, is that if you are a domain expert, let's say you're an expert in some topic or some area, like I do a lot of research and I used quite a few AI engines and agents to do my research, and we're also building software for our customers on behalf of my companies, and we use quite a bit of AI. Um, it can make you super productive. So, for
Yeah.
example, I don't want a article written by AI, but I want to say, okay, show me some relevant research that support this particular point, and give me some data, and it'll pull it up together. Uh, Many times it's complete hallucination and it's not the right research, but many times it's the right research, right? So that's on large language model. Think about a
Yeah.
more productive way where I have set up my own AI, the not model, but my own data sources. And I can say, okay, tell me what I wrote in my first book, Key Enterprise, and compare that what I wrote in my book, Reinvent. And all the data it's that set of data. It's not going outside. Those data set is pure data. It's not synthetic data, and is very helpful to make me very productive. So there's many ways we're gonna gain productivity, and we're gonna also keep outsourcing. I actually just published an article today on Psychology Today on this very topic, because there's this research that just came out of MIT and Harvard on the cognitive debt, that we're outsourcing out thinking. And the more we do it, is that convenience factor that we talked about. But my counter argument is that, well, if you are disciplined and you are a domain expert, you can be actually hyper powered to do your work than you would have been otherwise. And the reality is, if you don't do that, somebody else is going to be doing that, and you're going to be in competitive disadvantage.
Well, to me, it's the difference. The generative AI and using AI can take care of the quantity while you take care of the quality right now. Right? You mentioned the
Mhm,
hallucinations, right?
mhm.
Which comes up. Um, and I found like a good example would be, and I'm not saying anything out of school here. I've mentioned it before, but if I took one of my blog posts that I wrote and said I want to promote it on social media, could you please rewrite these
Yeah,
as social media posts? Blah 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 blah, and it does it. Am
it'll
I
do that. Yeah,
Yeah, it will totally do that, and it will do it in a way that it'll save me time. It'll also save me not just the time of doing it, but it'll save me the time of figuring out what is the best way to post something for LinkedIn so that it gets engaged. Like it knows all this stuff. And here's the thing, even if it
yeah,
doesn't know as much as a person does, in those instances, social media being a river, I'm not necessarily concerned about that, right? Whereas I'm not necessarily, let's say, for an article or a book, going to say, find some research on this and just take it at face value. Like you said, there's hallucinations, but it also leads me to, oh, I didn't even know this person talked about this. I'm going to reach out to this person and get it right from them. So it is
yeah,
to me, and this is mentioned early on in the book. I think it's in the introduction where the idea of transforming fear into fascination. And I have to
yeah.
say that recently I watched the movie The Life of Chuck, and I read the story of The Life of Chuck. I don't know if you've seen it yet, the Stephen King movie that came out not too long as we're recording
Mhm.
this.
Yeah.
So there's a line in the story, the actual, short story where he says, I think it's the grandfather that says, fascination and fear are twin cousins. And I'm like, it's such an interesting leap, and both yet feel and I think part of the convenience factor, we have to decide, do we want convenience? The decision between convenience and control, right? Because,
Yeah.
there's only so much. I mean, if I was to write every single social media post that I wanted to post, then I would have control over them, but I could do far less of the other things that I'm much better at doing. So to me, this relationship, it's not unlike your relationship with time. It's here, it's how are you going to dance with it? How are you going to navigate it? You've got some interesting frameworks that work with it too. So I want to get into those. So you mentioned opportunities, which is funny because the first two letters of opportunities are OP, and we're going to talk about the open framework. Can we dive into the idea of how this framework uh, allows you to be kind of, as you point out in the book, open to the possibilities of what AI is? Can we break down the open framework?
Sure. Look, I mean, so we have dual framework because of
Hmm.
exactly what you just mentioned, the fear and the opportunity and the intersection and the paradox between those two. So, we looked at open as like, how do you explore opportunity and come up with a set of opportunity that you can rack and stack to see which yields the best result for you. And we did that in the context of individual businesses and government, right?
Right.
So open, and we don't have the time to go through every single. Just to give you a
Yeah,
little
just good.
little
Little cliff
yeah.
notes. We
So
we
for
want people to pick up the book. So
no, but I mean, the first word of open is actually outline. Outline your purpose. It starts with purpose, right? Because you have to decide why do you want to use it. So your example of, okay, I got this blog, I've already written it. I want to convert that into a social media post, or maybe I wrote something like 5 years ago. It's still relevant, but I want to add on something relevant from today's news. It's highly productive to be able to do that. So that's your purpose. Your purpose is to be more productive, as an
mhm.
example, right? My purpose, maybe let's say if I was a as an oncologist, maybe that my purpose is find cancer cure. My outline of opportunity will be very different than how do I post. It's not good or bad or more important or less important. It can be utilized for both scenario, right? But you're
Sure.
still starting with a purpose and outlining your purpose and going through that process and coming with a portfolio opportunity. Now, if you look at care, because I can't talk about open
Yep.
without talking about care. This because it's that fear and mitigating risk and all that sort of a thing. Care is for governance of AI and the utilization governance of utilization of AI. So, for example, you say, okay, um, to what extent I want to outsource myself, right? So, care. First word for care is catastrophe. And so it's coming up with the catastrophic scenario that says, okay, if I keep doing all this, then maybe I will not think at all, right? I will not think, I will not come up with any new idea. I'm just going to keep telling the AI to write stuff one after another and another, and it will not be my voice anymore. It'll be something else. And by the way, the AI, especially the large language model, it's taking data that's already out there, right?
Right.
So there is a generic element to it. So if you keep using the large language model, let's say as an example, just to, we'll use writing as an example, you're going to come
Mhm.
up with generic stuff. It's not going to
Yeah.
be as authentic, right? So it's important to come up with a catastrophic scenario that says, when do I stop totally outsourcing or dependency or whatnot, so that I don't become a generic, you know, person, generic
Yeah.
Faisal, generic Mike, or whatever, because I still need my authentic voice, right? So
Mhm.
that's kind of the dual framework kind of works, and it can get very deep depending on when you're talking about complex organization and government agencies versus an individual.
Well, and that's because at the higher up you go, the less subjectivity you have and the more objectivity takes
Yeah,
place because you're getting more people in there. So for an organization that's looking at modeling these two frameworks, which you're right, they do go hand. It's actually interesting because fear and fascination go hand in hand, that they're evil twin cousins.
yeah,
But this is the opposite.
exactly.
These are like, you can't have, it's like PB&J, or you can't have one without the other. For when you go to
Yeah.
the highest level, the corporate, the organizational level, how do you deftly navigate these frameworks without, because that's where the humanity can get lost, right? Once you're already in a big
Yeah,
organization, humanity
yes.
already feels like it's a bit scuttled. So how do you keep that
Mm.
humanity alive when you're in that much of a larger organization where it is more perilous?
Yeah, look, I mean, it takes quite a bit of discipline, and it requires actual organizational rigor and organizational oversight that makes sure that happens. So, for example, part of the framework what I talk about is that you have to, when you're exploring opportunity, like think about like brainstorming. I
Mhm.
have 10 ideas that I could possibly go after, right? To make me more productive, make me more profitable, to explore new market, whatever the case may be. Now, the next question you have to ask, okay, what are the risks associated for each of those opportunity? That's where the care model comes in. And you're really talking about enterprise risk, but also market risk. All right. So, for
Mhm.
example, if you say, okay, I'm Taco Bell and I want to staff the Taco Bell outfits with humanoid robots because I don't have to pay them, they're not going to complain, and it's going to be highly productive, right? So
Mhm.
that's a scenario, right? But let's
Sure.
think about the risk. First risk is that you're going to actually create a rift between you and the customer, because as human being, we still like to interact with human. I mean, you hear this all the time. I hate talking to a chatbot because I want to talk to a person. I don't want to talk to a chatbot.
Right.
Now imagine humanoid robots now serving you, your food, to a certain extent, maybe the back office, but the front office, I don't think so.
I wanna
Right.
share with you
So,
something. I know I wanna share something
sure.
really quickly. Um,
Yeah,
th
please.
this is at a
I can
Muji
see that.
store.
Yeah.
It's at a Muji store
Mhm.
in Vancouver. This is called the
Yeah.
Artly, and it is a robot barista. You walk up, you pay the iPad, you run your thing.
Yeah.
It actually addresses you. It called itself Jarvis, which I'm sure Marvel might have something to say about that.
Yeah.
But it looks at you. So here is I'm going to show the video, like the photo of, that's my daughter there. But it shows it's looking at you, and it says, it's addressing you every once in a while if you were walking by. So I ordered two, and it was hilarious just to watch it do the thing, because it's not interacting with you, like you pointed out. Not only that, but it ran out of oat milk. So then it's like, sorry, I'm out of oat milk. I've summoned a human person to refill the da, da, da." And so we had to wait for the person. And this person I mean, it was hilarious. I think they were taking advantage of the fascination of us seeing this robot. It took them longer to refill the oat milk than it did for the coffee to
Yeah,
be made. And the person wasn't working in a
yeah,
hurry. Like, it was like, I'm just gonna, because they know that, it's more for the show than anything else. But to your point, like, we're there. Like, we're there where it could be happening. And then the question becomes is, when does that, speaking of risk, uh, watching Muji is not exactly a coffee shop. It's a clothing store. It sells, travel accessories and all that stuff. You go in there, I wasn't expecting to get a cup of coffee. So the stakes were really low, right? Like, there, I mean,
yeah, right.
again, it's
Exactly.
theater. But
Exactly.
a
Right.
Starbucks
Right.
or any other, like, this is where that line is, right? But it was fascinating to watch. And just to know
100%.
that
Right.
what I loved about it, to be honest, was the novelty of it. By the way, the coffee was fine. It wasn't great. It was actually, that's kind of hilarious because most AI, if you just give it a generic prompt, it's okay. It does fine. It doesn't do anything great or
Yeah. Right.
awful. It's the amount of again, the human aspect that you're adding to it, the nuance, all that stuff. But it was just hilarious because I'm thinking about, as I think about it now, I would not go, and this is my generation. It could be, I mean, younger generation. Who knows what's going to happen? But I wouldn't, and even my daughter wouldn't necessarily say, you know what? Let's go to the robot barista. Like, let's go back
Yeah.
to Muji. And I think that there's that to keep in mind. So I just want to bring that up because it just to illustrate to those listening, and if you're watching the video, that we're there. Like, we're there. It's just
Yeah.
now
And
decisions.
yeah. Right. And by the way, it's going to get better and better and better.
Hmm.
And you'll have robot summoning, meaning, AI agent summoning another agent to do out of oatmeal, so come and refill it, and you will have that too, right? And it's going
Yep.
to get smoother and all that stuff. And
Sure.
but here's the philosophical question that I would pose to your audience, which
Hmm.
is, look, in the entire human history, we have never dealt with the fact that we're going to have a thing or a species, collection of these things, which let's call it digital species,
Hmm.
that will be smarter than us, right? If you listen to like OpenAI's founder or other people, they're already saying, "I'm okay with if they are smarter than my children," right? So the question, so this idea of them being smarter is going to happen. It's going to happen a lot
Well,
sooner than we think we are. All right.
it's
Right?
collective intelligence. It can't not be.
That's right. Is exactly right. Then the question you have to ask yourself, okay, so what we in human history we have never dealt with any other species that are smarter than us. So what happens when you have smarter species? It tends to dominate other less smart species, right? So you can imagine a scenario where we'll be dominated because we outsource our freedom to these things. This is
Hmm.
my fear. But the opportunity also, the fact that it has potential to give us knowledge to cure cancer. It has the opportunity to elevate maybe complete elevation of poverty. Because
Hmm.
we are have better food sources, et cetera. Right. I have a cancer surviving son. Right. So that's
Yes.
one of the reasons I'm so got so much into this because I'm a data junkie. So I'm looking at, okay, how can you gather better data so you can very much personalize treatment for the cancer patient. So I get optimistic and excited when I think about those type of things. Or like I mean, I was with a private equity firm in London a couple of weeks back, and there are 60 companies. There are like emerging market companies. One of the companies sells these product for to the farmers, and many of the farmers can read or write. So they have this AI app that can actually take pictures, and the generative AI interface tells the farmer which fertilization they should be using to have better crop for that particular year based on the climate and et cetera, right? So you would not be able to do that if you didn't have that, the generative AI and the current technology, because that farmer can't speak or write, right? So
Right.
so
Right. It's
so
it's not like
these
they
are
can get
exciting stuff.
the farmer's almanac won't help them in those instances, right? So what's fascinating to me about all of this is like, let's talk about the farming thing. So the Farmer's Almanac is published once per year in paper, fixed, right? And so it's fixed.
Right,
Things can change.
right.
AI can be
Yes,
receptive to that change, right?
sure.
As we're talking about this, one of the things that, again, the fascination, fear kind of, that kind of tug of war that can happen. What are some of the lessons? Because we don't want to fear monger people like, oh my goodness, we have another species here. I mean, what we're talking about is absolutely spot on. But what are some of the lessons we can learn from one of the other major innovations that happened in the last 30, 40 years, which is the dawn of the internet and the ubiquity of the internet, where, you and I are old enough to remember. I saw a meme the other day on Facebook that said, here's the original search engine. It was the library, the Dewey Decimal, all of that stuff. That's what we did. And to our kids, it's completely foreign. When they think of encyclopedias, they only think of Wikipedia. They don't think that people actually went door to door to sell these things, or you could order them online, right? Or not online, rather. You would order them by the phone. They wouldn't be ordered online because there was no online. But the point is there's got to be some lessons, because I look at, you know, a few things. Number one, the internet obviously is, people rely on it heavily, heavily, heavily. Like, not having the internet for me, as an example, I have no business, right? And then I also think about the technology of, like, again, the wearables, the personal, and we can even say that the phone is almost like a wearable at this point, because you don't go anywhere without it. It's your keys, your wallet, your phone. So what are some of the lessons that we can learn from those? Because we've taken some missteps with those, some that we have had a really hard time correcting. What are some of the ones we can do to kind of uh, override, or let's say cut off at the pass, any potential missteps we could make with where we are at with AI?
Look, I think we downplay this, and I wish we learned this more engagingly. Look at what has happened with social media platform, right? You could easily argue that social media is probably one of the biggest cause for psychological, emotional, and political downfall that we are seeing globally, right?
Yeah.
And there's three party that could be blamed for that. One is the platform vendors, because
Hmm.
they likes to manipulate algorithms so that they can make more money, right? So there's that element to it.
Sure.
Second is that governments never paid enough attention initially to establish the proper legislative infrastructure that prevents the platform vendors, but also prevents the individual when they do rogue and harmful things, right? And we're just catching up with that, and it's not even enough, right? A third is individual, because we are
Hmm.
responsible for what we do, what we view, what we post, etc., etc.
Hmm.
This is probably one of the greatest learning opportunity for AI as well, because I think we're headed towards the same path, because we are getting infatuated with the platform vendors. And when you talk about AI, most of us are user or builder of things utilizing the core technology. Core
Hmm.
technology is still controlled by a handful of tech platform vendors, just like
Sure.
social media is, right?
Hmm.
So if you look at that, right, we're infatuated by the tech vendors, and we're not holding the tech vendor responsible. And like, look, I'm an author, right, and fortunately, I don't make money from writing. All my book proceed goes to charity. But imagine the authors or the artists that are now complaining because they find their stuff in the large language model. So they're intellectually being robbed, right, in many ways, right? And then they were giving them more and more of our data, and we're not holding them responsible, and they will able to manipulate us more and more and more and more, right? And we're going to be held hostage because data is stored in their cloud, data is manipulated in their algorithm, and the interfaces are all done by them. So there's that. The government is always 10, 15, 20 years behind. All
Yep.
government, whether the
Yep.
US government, Canadian government, European government, it doesn't matter. And then we're so distracted, meaning globally. Look at all the wars and look at all the economic potential uncertainty and all the social uncertainty because of joblessness that could be caused from technology. We're completely distracted, meaning that our governments are completely distracted to even think about properly what kind of legislative infrastructure they should be putting together, right? And the third and foremost is that you have to, whatever you are, whether you're a business individual or you're a tech vendor, you have to start thinking about what's the measurement of progress. You talk about productive. I often talk about progress. Progress is when you actually have an impact on other human being
Right.
for positive impact, right? So whatever we're doing, if it doesn't have any positive impact, then it's not probably worthwhile doing, right? So if you have, coffee baristas, which turns me off, and I don't even want to leave my home anymore. I'd rather make my own coffee.
Yep.
You talk about Jarvis. We actually use Jarvis in the book as an example.
Yep.
So these are these are deeper and complex questions to answer, but I think that those needs to be addressed, and if we don't, we will become a outsourced humanity, and will become a secondary concern versus the primary concern that we are today.
So what I love about the conclusion is the words that you break every bit up with. You're using words that are, again, logic slash reason based, and then reason slash emotion based. So what I mean by that is, AI at this juncture can it thinks in a logic and slash, or it's getting closer to reason, but emotion it can't do
Sure.
yet. I don't know if it ever can, but I mean, I'm not going to count it out. Humans can do all three: logic, emotion, reason. To your point, the one we have the hardest time thing to tap into is reason, because we either go to the far
Yeah.
end, which is I should use AI like crazy, or I should never use it at all. But you're talking about things like connection, devotion. I mean, I know you bring up some spiritual elements in the book as well, but love
Mhm.
comes in here, like faith, hope, and love. The greatest of these is love. The love is the capstone of the first three domains of value, which we suggest we should devote ourselves. So as we wrap up our episode here, we talk about the idea of transcending. We've heard from musicians, from artists, from philosophers, heck, even from the movie Interstellar, which is really what transcends time and space, love. So where when people are like, okay, where's Mike going with this? Are we supposed to fall in love with AI? Like as we're talking about this, and it literally gets to the point where you're like, all right, this is the role of the interaction phase between human and AI. How do we make sure, or how does someone who wants to engage with AI in a more responsible, measured way keep love in mind, keep those elements in mind that make us human, but also allow us to tap into the opportunity and kind of cultivate our curiosity around AI so that it becomes part of who we are and how we operate, as opposed to this completely separate thing that we either need to be afraid of because it's a new species, or other people have control over it, like government or big tech or whatever. How does someone reconcile that in their head without getting too emotional about it, in terms of, you know, either they're going to dismiss it altogether, or they're going to get overwhelmed by it, or they go the other route, which is logic, which is, okay, I guess I use it for everything now, and damn the torpedoes.
Um, so first thing I would say that when I talk about love, and the way we crafted love as a concept in the book is love for humanity. It's not love for technology. Because if you are in love with humanity, uh, you start thinking things very differently. I'll give you a very practical and simple example. Let's say I'm a designer of an application, and let's say the code is being written by AI because I don't need to write code anymore. But let's say I'm now telling the code to say when my patient goes to this healthcare portal, and there you are siphoning the result to the patient. Be gentle and come up with a language that's empathetic, right? And so
Mhm.
here's an example of empathetic versus not empathetic. So um, your test result is inconclusive. Contact your provider immediately. Okay, that's the answer.
Mhm.
Another answer could be that we don't have all the answers yet from your test. Or your provider, so on so will be contact. Try not to worry. Make it very human-like, right?
Sure.
So this is because I'm thinking about the recipient, the human, not the system. So this is an example of how I think about in love with humanity, because you're using empathy to understand what would be the reaction about another human being when you are interacting with and you can use that example in 1,000 different ways, right?
Sure.
So that barista example you gave, right? I mean, do I want a barista to be a robot? Maybe, or maybe not. But even if it is the case, then I want that robot to mimic human, kind of a uh, empathetic way of dealing with it. So I actually vehemently disagree with people who says don't say yes or please to
Oh, me
your
too.
AI,
Me too. I love saying
because
I love saying thank you and please
yeah,
and all that too. And my daughter gave me crap. She goes, "Dad, I mean, it doesn't need that." Even Sam Altman said, "I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I want it.
yeah,
I feel better
yeah,
about doing that because that's who
yeah,
it feels more gracious." And I know you bring up grace in the book as well.
yeah. No, absolutely, because it's a reflection of humanity. You shouldn't be acting as a machine to machine communication. You should be communicating human to machine communication. And you wouldn't want your daughter not to say thank you and not to say please, because that's what a evolved, a graceful human being is supposed to be. You're supposed to
Right.
be grateful. You're supposed to be empathetic, right? Those are reflection. Language is the reflection of who we are, and our posture is reflection of who we are, right? So we don't want to ever lose that, because if we lose that, then we completely lost it, right? Then we're no longer no longer
Well, it's a
humanity as we know it.
it's a muscle too, right? Like, to your point,
Yeah,
if you don't
emotional
exercise
muscle.
it, yeah, I could go to an actual barista and just go, and then it's not just the experience is terrible for both, by the way. Like, someone says, yeah, I
Yeah,
just want my
yeah,
coffee. If you've ever seen in a movie or a TV show where someone goes in and just is like completely dismissive to the barista, it's because they're
yeah,
having a crappy day or they're not a good person, or like that's one of it's literally a trope, right? so
yeah,
so
yeah,
so to me,
yeah, absolutely.
I couldn't agree more. And I have, I mean, it is, especially for some of the reasons, and I can guarantee, I mean, you list some of the things that AI is doing in the book now. Obviously, we've been to research recently. I think it came out a couple weeks ago, as of this recording, that one of the top uses for AI, which again, I don't necessarily, there's no absolutes here. I'm not going to say you should or shouldn't, but using it for therapeutic means, right? Using it as a journaling tool.
Yeah,
We're seeing more AI journaling tools. And the main reason for that is, I believe, people don't journal enough. So how do you make it convenient?
yeah,
How do you make it more valuable? Because how do you make it more impactful? And that would be a way, right? So
yeah,
this has
yeah.
been a fantastic conversation. The book is called Transcend, Unlock. There we go. Unlocking Humanity in the Age of AI. Where can people pick up the book and your other works, and also keep up with the work that you're doing?
Look, I mean, book is available all book places, meaning Barnes and Noble, Amazon. It's available in hard copy, ebook, as well as in audiobook. My all my other books are also available. I my personal website, faisalhoque.com. We publish at least an article, new article, if not multiple articles a week. I have a daily post on LinkedIn, so you can find me wherever. And as I was mentioning, that books are all for charity. It goes to cancer research, so you may learn something, but you may also be able to, help some needy child and needy family.
Puzzle, thanks so much for taking the time to have a productive conversation with me today.
Thanks for having me. It's been an honor.